I'm Felicity Starr, and I'm predominantly a still life oil painter.
Hello and welcome to the Art Podcast, where we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. I'm Chris Stafford, and this is Season 2, Episode 9. My guest this week is Felicity Starr, a contemporary realism artist who seeks to celebrate life and excite the soul through her paintings, which portray still life, landscapes, and portraits. Felicity was born in Colchester, England in 1982, the eldest of three daughters to Steve and Fiona Menadue. Her father was in IT, and Fiona was a stay-at-home mum. At the age of 14, Felicity's family moved to Paris, and she attended the British School of Paris. She focused on politics and international studies as a foundation for her career, but instead found that she had a talent for sales. Whilst her career has taken her down that path, she's never stopped drawing and is mostly a self-taught artist. Her dedication to art, though, has been a constant source of solace and self-discovery, allowing her to navigate the unique challenges associated with dyslexia and ADHD. Felicity has shown her work at the Royal Society of British Artists, the Royal Institute of Oil Painters, the Royal Society of Marine Artists, and the Society of Wildlife Artists. In 2003, she also exhibited at the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition and Royal West Academy. Felicity combines her art with a full-time job in IT as VP at Salesforce. She's married to Richard, who also works in IT, and the couple live in Hampshire, England, with their two children, Annabelle and Charlie. Felicity, welcome to the Art Podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you are in a beautiful part of England, Fleet in Hampshire, which is just to the southwest of London, for those who are not familiar with the geography there, but it is a beautiful part of England. I'm sure you're inspired by just your environment, aren't you, for your paintings?
Yeah, absolutely. I love nature, like I'm sure we all do, really. And yeah, you're quite right. There's Fleet Pond just down the road, which is about 3 kilometres circumference, and it's full of wonderful spots to look at, admire, and then also to get your imagination working.
Because you like to paint outside, au plein air?
I do, yes. I probably get the most enjoyment. Actually, there's no probable about it. I get the most pleasure in plein air painting outside in the environment. You know, they call it flow, when you're completely consumed, enjoying the subject that you're considering and then translating into paint. I also think it probably gives me the best education in terms of keeps my eye, my skills sort of fresh. But I must say, in terms of how people react to my work, people prefer my still life to the plein air. So the plein air is more of a sort of self-education rather than the direction of my work, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm already waffling and we've only just got started. I'm sorry.
Well, your painting is being described as very straightforward. Would that be how you would describe yourself personally? Are you a very straightforward person, and then is that your vision of the world?
Yes, I think so. I think that I'm quite black and white. I'm not blessed with a filter, so perhaps sometimes things that I say are very welcomed, and cut through any noise, and then other times some things I'll say that might not be quite as welcome. But yeah, I'm straightforward in terms of I know what I love. I pretty much love everything. I enjoy people painting outdoors. From a young age, I wasn't very good at writing. I diagnosed dyslexic at a very young age, and writing and reading was very difficult. So immediately I sort of started drawing and things, and so there's a natural connection there to paint what I feel and what I see in a straightforward manner. I don't try and make things prettier or change them from how they are in life. I love to celebrate the object or the thing or the environment as is. The only thing I do interject is sort of narrative, and I love symbolism. I adore stories within stories. So yes, straightforward, but with a bit of fun.
Does that mean you have a sense of humour, Felicity? I imagine you do.
Well, I think I'm hilarious. My children might not agree with me, but yeah, no, I think I'm a barrel of laughs. But yeah.
Are you the life and soul of the party?
I'm told I am. I have very high energy levels. Constantly, that's constantly brought up. I'm amazed that you've already. Can you hear that already?
Well, let's unpack it a little bit more then. What do you do for fun?
Well, I paint for fun. I have a full-time job for various reasons, and I paint in my should we say spare time, which is any time that is free. Normally in the evenings when I've got the children to bed, or at the weekends when they're at their various hobbies, sports, things like that, and then holidays. I carry around an easel wherever I go, and so my friends and family are very used to. Maybe we'll be at a barbecue, and I will be present and in the moment and chatting, but I will be standing there with an easel, because I also find it very difficult to sit still. And I'm quite fidgety, so also painting is sort of turned out to be almost a bit of a mechanism to keep me in the moment rather than running off doing something else.
I was talking to an artist the other day, Felicity, who during the course of the day, she works all day. During the day, she will get up from time to time and she'll put the music on and she'll dance on her own, just to release that energy and then go back to work. Would that appeal to you?
Absolutely, yes. I tend to get very fixated on songs for a period of time. It will be sort of one song that I'll play on repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And yeah, definitely got up and danced. I danced a lot as a child. I love having a jig around.
Well, you mentioned that you started drawing from an early age because that was a very safe place for you to explore. Was that in colour as well? Did you add colour to your young life?
That's an interesting question, because somebody emailed me or messaged me on Instagram the other day specifically about colour, in terms of this lady was saying how she adores drawing, but when she adds colour to it, it all goes belly up. And God, that resonated with me so much, because no, I was just a drawer or a draftsman or woman, however you say it. I just would love to be with a pencil or a black pen. And that's what I loved. I realized probably about 16 that I needed to get into painting, because I didn't see any drawings in museums. And whilst I was still unsure about where my life was going to take me, I got so many trains of thoughts at the same time. I was very aware that I don't want my life to be a waste, and I'm scared of the thought of dying and being forgotten and not making a positive mark on the world. And I would go to museums and I would see books and celebrated artists, and there was the drawing was almost always the prerequisite to a celebrated painting. So I told myself, if that's the direction I'm going to go in, then I'm going to need to, quick, smart, get a grip on painting, and I sort of forced myself to enjoy it because I didn't think the drawing would get me there. Now, obviously, hindsight's a beautiful thing, and now that I'm well into my life and older, I can actually see that you can do whatever you want in life, and you could, make a name for yourself, create a legacy. As a chap called Curtis, who does the most magnificent portraits in pencil and coloured pencils, and they will never be forgotten. And he is creating his legacy right now. But I guess at the time, as a younger person, I didn't think about breaking through those norms.
What other artists were inspiring you then, when you were younger?
When I was younger, my sort of first love was Lucian Freud. And again, I think that must have been about 16. I was very into Manet as well. And we moved to France when I was younger. And I lived near Bougival, which is where a lot of the Impressionists live. And so it's like known as the cradle of Impressionism. So by virtue of where I was, a lot of that sunk in. I loved the freedom of the quick brush marks and the energy that comes across. A lot of the Impressionist work. I did also very much like Rodin, and then got to know Gwen John. And then as I've got older, Velasquez, Sorollo, who I can never pronounce, I always get that wrong, embarrassingly enough. And anybody and everybody. And there's a lady, by the way, Heidi Jo Summers, a contemporary artist. She is amazing. I don't think you've interviewed her yet, but you must reach out to her. I sort of worship her. She's a bit of a heroine of mine.
Now, your parents, were they at all influential in your creativity? I know they divorced when you were 21, so you spent your childhood with them. Were they parents that let you unpack your own creativity, or did they steer you in any way?
They did steer me out of love. And I've always been a very happy person, and I think they would say I was a happy child. I was a bit of a handful, though. Again, I think the energy sometimes was a bit much. And I was full of ideas, and at one point I wanted to be a ballerina. So I think it was quite exhausting for them, really, to keep track of everything I wanted to do and be, and wanted to do everything at my best possible level and be the best and all the rest of it. And I think when it came to choosing universities and things, I went down the sort of academic route and read politics and international relations. And I was definitely encouraged to do that because my parents quite rightly wanted me to have a life ahead where I could get a job and have financial security. Looking, especially at that time, at what roles there would be for artists, it didn't feel like it was a career that was a stable moneymaker, which was a priority at the time for my parents, for me to have. Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all of that stuff. It makes sense to me.
You're the oldest of three girls. Were you competitive with your siblings?
Yes. Yeah, we were, we are. We've all gone down different routes, and we adore each other. So we were competitive, but in a very fun, close way. My middle sister is a sports junkie. She's incredible. She can run ultra marathons. And then the younger sister is she's a real academic. She's so clever. I think she now writes policy for the government for environmental stuff, but I don't always listen to exactly what she's telling me because it's very specific. Yeah.
And was there any?
I wish I hadn't said that. She's going to listen. I love you, Hetty. I love you, Lily. Your jobs are amazing.
And are they at all artistic?
No. Yeah, not from a drawing painting perspective. No, nobody is.
So where do you think the time came in your young life where you thought this is actually something ultimately I want to do? Maybe not the first career, but something that I want to do for the rest of my life, if I possibly can, if I marry the right man and find the right circumstances.
Well, I never thought, I guess the only way is just to be honest, but I never thought, and still, I mean, I've been on a journey, everybody goes on a journey. I mean, only in the last few years have I had the confidence to call myself an artist. And when you reached out to say, would you like to do this podcast? You know, I was dancing around the house singing, I've made it. Like, oh my goodness, I'm actually an artist. Because I haven't had the training. It was not something that I don't want to say this and then make my parents sound bad because they're amazing. But there's funny memories. I did GCSE art and I did GCSE A level, and I would always be in trouble because they would come into my room and I would lie and say that, I'm doing my English homework or I'm doing my maths. And of course I never was, because I would be drawing or doing another study or so it was almost like I quite quickly had to do my art in secret because I know I wasn't allowed to be doing it. Nobody really did it. It then also wasn't cool to be doing it. I have a remarkable best friend, lady called Laura, and she was just, I mean, she helped make me, and she's so funny. She couldn't care less what's sort of cool or not cool. And we used to bunk off school quite a bit. And when you watch films or you look at people bunking off school, they normally go and do really naughty things. But we would bunk off school to then go and sit on the bridges in Paris on the River Seine, with our sketchbooks and draw the boats, the scenery, the architecture, the landscapes. And then when we went to university, she went up to Durham, and we would meet up and she'd say, let's do some drawing. And in my mind, I'd think, oh my God, that's like the uncoolest thing to do. We should be in the pub drinking. So she was always my anchor into drawing. And she said, it must have been a throwaway comment, but she said once that her parents thought it was so nice that I still drew because they thought I was very good at it. And I guess carried that with me as well. And then I went into my career, and then I found myself in times of worry or concern or challenges. I would find myself drawing. Again, I wouldn't show anybody, and I met my husband and I would draw his portrait, but I don't even know if he knew I was drawing his portrait. It's just I was sitting watching TV and I'd get, really quite fidgety or bored. So I would do that. I'm concerned I'm rabbiting on again. Can you keep me on task? I don't even know what I'm answering, so I'm really sorry.
Well, you were born in Colchester in Essex, but you moved to Paris when you were a young teenager, when you were just 14 years old. So what was the reason for that move? Was that your parents' work that took you there?
Yes, yeah. So my dad worked in IT, he's retired now, and his job moved out there. So we moved with him, and we're all really excited to do so. And yeah, I went to French school for a bit. I was very hyper, and I got myself into trouble a lot. And I...
What kind of trouble?
just silly things. I found it very difficult to sit still, and I'm embarrassed to say, but just silly things like, turning on the fire alarm, thinking it was funny, climbing on the roof, thinking it was funny. I have a very high risk profile. So what I think is funny is actually quite foolish. And it got me into a lot of trouble. Anyway, I ended up going to the British School of Paris, and they were amazing. That school is just the bee's knees. They were very good in giving me enough freedom to be who I want to be, and then also, directing my intellect. Because as an adult, I have been diagnosed actually with ADHD, so it makes a lot of sense now. Everything. Whereas beforehand, growing up, I guess I was just a bit challenging and excess energy and all of those usual things. Now I can understand that actually, not that it's an excuse, but just the way my brain is wired. I get very, very into things. I get very excited and passionate, and then things that don't really interest me, it's almost painful to try and listen. And if somebody's wittering on about something that's not interesting, then it's very, very difficult for me to concentrate.
So were you a daredevil then at school in France?
Yes.
And what was the most exciting escapades that you got up to?
My goodness me!
Well, now that you can talk about them, you see, because you've long since left. You're not going to get into trouble now, Felicity, if you tell the rest of the world on this podcast.
I wouldn't put it past me. I mean, my goodness me, I've had my car blown up by a bomb, by the way, in London. So, again, goodness knows why I said that, but yes, that happened in 2021, I think, in Ealing. There was actually a case of mistaken identity, but as you can imagine, that's a story in itself. But the worst, the best, I mean, we got up to all sorts of things. Laura was a terrible influence, although it was always perceived that I was the worst, but she is more daredevilish than I am. We swam across the Seine once. We were in a party near the Notre Dame, and in one of the apartments, and I think we thought it would be fun to swim across. Obviously, that is not a good idea. It's a very stupid idea. If my children do that, I would ground them and they'd be in big trouble. There's like paniches, or barges coming and all sorts. And I guess it was midnight and cold, and there's, all of the above for those reasons why it's not a good idea. But at the time, it was. I guess that's a pretty daredevilish thing that I don't think will get me into any trouble sharing. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get back to the arts.
I don't think you're going to get into trouble now, though you might do in this summer if you tried to do it during the Olympics.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, I'd be in big trouble then.
And so when you were in school then, did you have a sense of what you wanted to do when you were in Paris, of what you might want to do with your career? I mean, you studied politics and international law. Now, that was something that you thought would be a good foundation for a career, as your parents were guiding you towards that. But what did you think you might do with it?
Why did I study that? I studied that because I was doing some Model United Nations at the time with the British School of Paris, and my boyfriend at the time was Indian, and I just loved. I mean, the school is just full of different. It's called the British School, but actually, there's every nationality there. So it wasn't something that I thought there's a career. I just was interested in it, and it was the only thing other than art. I didn't really want to do French. Everybody kept telling me to do French, but then again, when you grow up in an international environment, like most people speak 5 languages, and even though my French is very good, it's not bilingual. And I always sort of, that saying about being a fish in a small pond or a big fish in a small pond, or the rest of it. So I don't really want to do that. And that was that. I was massively into dance. I did like ballet, tap, jazz from a very young age. And I, loved drama. I loved singing, always been in a choir. So I guess that's where I wanted to go. Like musical theatre. But then when I got more into it, I didn't really I wasn't. The musical theatre world is very competitive, and although I'm competitive in nature, I wasn't sort of strong enough to have enough self-confidence that I could go to that level. And because I wanted to be best at everything, I kind of gave up that avenue.
Were you in
I didn't really know I finished university, and my father was paying like an allowance, and I finished uni, and he said, okay, so what are you going to do? What's your job? And I said, I don't know. I haven't found myself yet. And he said, okay, but you have to get a job. And I said, oh, yeah, I understand that, but I don't know what I want to be. And he said, okay, well, you be what you want to be, but I'm not paying for you anymore. So, no more money. And that was it. Like turned off the tap of the fund. Obviously, I was incredibly lucky to have the fund in the first place, but it was a very abrupt stop. And I just had to get a job. And my dad, at university, I worked in JD Sports, selling trainers, and then behind the bar in all sorts of clubs and things. And Dad said I'd probably be good at sales because I was getting tips for selling trainers, which, was unusual. So I had some interviews. There was a local company, a small company, business partner, selling IT software, hardware, and I got a job there. And then that's where my career went, really.
Where did it go from there?
Well, I'm now a regional vice president for Salesforce, which is a huge, amazing company selling software across the world. And I run a team, and I don't know if you've heard of Salesforce. They're a CRM, customer relationship management platform initially, and now we cover applications across the board, AI, you name it, really, integration, etc. It's very IT.
So it's combining, your sales skills and your father's IT background then?
Yes, I have followed my father 100%. And the secret of the painting and the art over time has got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's, it's part of who I am. I am an artist. Whether or not I'm perceived to be an artist from the external world is a whole other debate. But I have now realized, maybe 4 years ago, that I can embrace being an artist. It is, what I want to say is that maybe I perceived the artist world to not be, as academic, and therefore not as successful and as a driven family. That's what I thought I needed to do. So my company are actually incredibly supportive. They are very much aware of the fact that I need to paint every day, otherwise I get the shakes. And they encourage me. And strangely enough, because I do love people, and because I do have a lot of energy, and because I do love socializing and presenting and strategizing, that actually it's sort of a yin and yang, because I get to throw myself out into risky meetings, complicated conversations, and then on the flip side, I get to then have the anecdote of being completely by myself in my studio, painting for as long as I need or want, and then I do it all over again. And I guess as well, I don't have the time to, I was listening to some of your podcasts, and some of the questions around how do you get yourself motivated, or how do you get in the mood to do art. And I don't have that challenge because I just don't have the time. I just sort of think, okay, I've got an hour now, run quickly. You could start a good painting in an hour, so quickly just get it done. And then my alarm will go off and I'll have to go and pick up my daughter from netball or something like that.
How do you divide your time then between a demanding job and art, which seems to me to be a form of sort of mental therapy for you as well, an essential one?
Yes, it is. It is. How do I divide my time? I guess I am in the moment. So if I'm at work, I'm very much at work. I'm probably pretty good at doing, 9 till 5. Whereas maybe some of my colleagues work unbelievable, ridiculous hours. I don't really have a choice because I know I need to paint to keep me sane. And yeah, I mean, at some point, I think my dream will be to be a full-time artist. But right now, in the moment, I'm enjoying having 2 lives. If that's probably really greedy. But do you know what is amazing? Because I have financial security, because I have an amazing job, just get to paint what I want, when I want, how I want. Like there's no constraints. And sometimes I speak to artists and, they have specific commissions or they have specific projects or, they're concerned about money and that must be so stressful. Whereas painting like I do in the freedom that I do, I'm very, very privileged from that perspective. I get like jealous every now and again when I see full-time artists just, I don't know, going on a plein air trip or doing some sort of project or exhibition. But in the great sort of swing of things, I'm happy with how I do balance my life. The most important thing to me is my children. My education was interesting through my own challenges. I am driven to pay for the best education that I can possibly get them. And if that means having 2 jobs or 2 careers, then that's what I have to do.
You have a daughter who's 13 years old, Annabelle, and then Charlie, your son, who's 11 years old. So very demanding ages.
They're great kids. They're amazing. I can't believe they're mine, but they are. They look really similar, actually. It's quite funny because my sisters, we don't really look, I mean, there were similarities, but my son and my daughter, I think, look so similar. But then obviously one's the male and one's the female. So I chuckle over that.
And so just going back to your schedule, because with a full-time 9 to 5 job during the week, that means you must be painting evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
Is that a challenge with raising a family, having a husband and doing all the, family stuff as well? That must make it a pretty full 24 hours for you.
Yeah, I'm always on. Now that I'm older, I realize that, so I don't watch TV. The things around the sides of life, I tend to not do. I don't drink alcohol at all anymore. So I'm quite strict with knowing what's right for me. So whilst I'll go out maybe for a work dinner, I'll be drinking a Diet Coke and some water and all the rest of it, which I enjoy again because I'm so hyper anyway. I get into the moment, but then I wake up in the morning, I'm fresh as a daisy and I'm ready to go. So I don't have any sort of off moments. So in the grand scale of things, that gives me back a lot more time than maybe one would assume. The children are definitely older. So the whole painting, drawing stuff, that completely stopped when they were babies. I mean, I would draw and paint them occasionally when they were asleep. If I got enough sleep, they were a nightmare. None of them slept, unbelievably horrific. So just press pause on life and do when I can, all the rest of it. But now they're so into their own lives. Like my son loves chess. He's a very happy boy. He's got great school friends and all the rest of it. So he's pretty much left his own devices. He is rubbish with homework. That's a pain in the ass. But, my husband and I are there behind him, motivating him. And my daughter is extremely self-sufficient. She is obsessed with netball. She loves hockey. She's very into sports. So she plays, I think, every night bar one. some sort of sport thing, and then she is very academic and likes to do her work. So the most amazing person is Richard, my husband. He is, I mean, hands down, he's the best man in the whole wide world. He is so supportive. He does, we call it blue and pink jobs, you know, man jobs, women jobs. And yeah, he does way beyond the blue jobs. He's incredible cook. So, in fact, it's funny, like when the kids were younger, you know, when children are growing up, they'd say, you know, what's for tea, mum? They wouldn't say that. They'd say, who's cooking dinner? Is it you or dad? And I'd be like, dad. They're like, oh, phew, my goodness for that. So very supportive family, children who are naturally, you know, happy disposition. And then my husband and I have had many chats. You know, I want to paint. I need to paint. Maybe I should go and do a degree in art because I'm not taught. You know, I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking of painting. I go to bed at night, I'm thinking of painting. If I'm having lunch for somebody, I'm looking at their face, working out what it would look like on the canvas. You know, I can't ignore that anymore. But we discussed it, and actually what's right for me, we think, is to lead these two lives. And so I think that's probably the reason why he is so supportive, because he knows, you know, it's within me. Am I making any sense?
Now, do your children have any interest in art at all? Do they watch you and see the energy that you put into it?
Yeah, they're interested. I think they probably will be more interested in it when they get older and they're out from, you know, my world, should we say. I think they dabble in it. I think they both have good eyes. I mean, my daughter's doing amazing work. She's 13 in her art classes, but I doubt that she'll do it for GCSE because she doesn't have. Maybe she will. I don't know. There must be some sort of psychology, and you know, the fact that your mum's so obsessed about something, you might want to almost go the other way. And then I think naturally, probably when she's a bit older, she'll come back to it. I'd love art to be a bit more of a thing that adults pick up and do. Kind of, you see a lot of children drop it at a certain level, and then they never pick it up again. I, you know, meet a lot of people at work when I talk about art. They say, "Oh, I used to love art at school," and you know, when was the last time you drew? Or you know, 20 years ago. It's like, "Oh, pick up a pencil." I'm like, I didn't think I could do that. Yeah.
Yes, you often hear that. Now, I just want to come back to your motives for the painting, because you said how you can financially, you know, balance the two careers, you know, with making art a profitable enterprise as well. But does it have to be commercial for you? Because when you say you're expressing yourself, your ideas of what you want to paint, you don't have any obligations for commissions. You can just go and paint what you want to paint. But do you go towards the easel thinking, okay, I've got to make money out of this. This has to be a commercial enterprise. Otherwise, it's just therapy.
No, I don't have that. But I guess because I'm in a privileged position of having a salary through another means. I do, unfortunately, I don't want to admit it, but I've started saying it, so I will. I do seek external validation. So whilst I'm not needing the money per se, I do sometimes think, oh, will people like this? Case in point, actually, I just did a painting recently that I like, but I'm not going to show it to anybody because I don't think it's something that other people will like. So I'll keep that to myself. So I guess that guides me.
So that validation then is coming from the admiration from the audience, so to speak. And I know you said that your goal is to make people feel good when they're looking at your paintings too. So in terms of the satisfying process of art and painting, where is the most satisfaction coming from?
The most satisfaction is coming from truly painting and it's the only time that I really feel at peace without sounding too, I don't know, corny or whatever it sounds like. I don't, there's so many challenges going on in the world. I feel very emotional towards the lives being lost, wars, political challenges. I'll worry about all sorts of things, and it's only when I'm painting can I switch off. Even sleep, you end up dreaming and then thinking about things. So the most satisfaction comes from being in the moment, being present, and creating. I love that. And I feel like I'm doing something for a positive purpose. So that feels good. Like there's no ulterior motives. There's nothing that I'm doing that could have a negative impact on other people, should we say. Maybe it could if I painted something they didn't like, but that's quite superficial at that level. So that gives me the most reward. And then again, something I think I mentioned, but I really want to leave a legacy. And I don't mean to sort of give myself I just don't want to be forgotten. I don't want it to all be worthless. I don't want to like die and then just for that to be that, move on, like who's the next? So I figured if I can create a painting that will last the test of time and have a meaning and a richness and a life experience. I have no idea what this painting is going to be, by the way, but that's what I'm working towards. So I keep on thinking, and when I'm a bit like a magpie in terms of collecting all of these objects around me for still lives. And that's why I love symbolism, and because I'm constantly thinking of a painting or a series of paintings that will truly be remarkable, so that it's not all for nothing.
Just going back to the satisfying part about it, obviously the application of the art, but is there also some sense of measure when you get your family's reaction to a piece? And when Richard comes to look at it, whether he likes it or doesn't like it, does that impact you?
Yeah, although I can't have Richard looking at paintings because he's just so. I mean, we are yin and yang. He's so serious. He is. He's impossible to read. Yes is good is what you'll get, and that probably means it's amazing or it's crap. Like you're not really going to get. He's very horizontal, shall we say. So he doesn't really get much of a look in terms of asking for his opinion. He's more of a shoulder to lean on when I think it's gone crap. My mother has a very critical eye, but that's quite good because she's honest. So that has an impact. And then, one of my personal ambitions is to get into or to become a member of one of the societies affiliated with British artists in London, in the Mall. So I submit regularly to the open calls, and that determines my happiness for the year. Like how many pieces did I get accepted into these exhibitions, these open calls? So that gives me a higher level of satisfaction or a high level of disappointment. But that is how I measure myself or measure how successful the year has been.
That's your grading scale then, is it?
Yes, yeah.
That external validation. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned earlier how much you enjoyed dance and music. So where does music play a role in your life now? Do you play music when you're painting?
I do. My husband is a pianist. In fact, he can play everything and anything. We've got, when my son was maybe, I don't even know if he was a year, was very, very little, maybe 9 months or something. It was my husband's birthday. And as a joke present, I bought him a desk set of drums, like, miniature set of drums for him to take in the office as like a bit of fun. And again, he was quite serious, and he opened it and he goes, "Oh, I think you're right. I think it's time that I bought myself some drums." Like, what? Where did that come from? And it turns out, I didn't actually know, but it turns out that he played drums as a kid. So he went out and bought himself. So we got drums on the hallway. We had an extension on the house made to fit in a grand piano for him, which is hilarious. And my son plays the cello. And what other instruments? Like, I think it's the trumpet or something. Richard also used to play, or oboe. Yeah, we've got an oboe lying around, and then we've got 2 guitars. So yeah, there's lots of music going around. And then I just listen to current music, whatever that may be, current pop music, and then a bit of classical I like from the ballet days.
So is that Radio 1 or Radio 2?
Oh, it's Alexa on Spotify.
Oh, okay. Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting your playlist, because we know, we do ask our guests to supply their playlist.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think I sent that to you like seconds before this meeting, much later than you had asked for it. But yes, I think hopefully you have it.
Okay. And now what about books? Because, being still is sometimes a challenge for people with high energy. Painting does that for you. But do you find time to read at all?
Yes, I read every day. I have to read to go to sleep. So I have a Kindle and I read myself to sleep. So yeah, I read all the time. It's quite funny, actually. I did an analysis. It's just popped into my mind. Must have been 3 years ago. So I've had a Kindle for, let's say, 10 odd years. Can't remember how long. And I did a subject access request, a data subject access request from Amazon to give me all the information that they have on me. And they send over these files and, things that I buy, the money that... so I then divided up the data and I had a look at what I spend money on. Now, obviously, I spent a lot on art supplies and then a lot on my kids' gifts and things. And then I got really into looking at the books because it showed how many books I was reading over the years. And it was quite consistent. I think it was something like 15 books a year for maybe 9 years or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers. And then COVID hit and it went into the 30s. Which I thought was a really interesting data point. So instead of going in and out of London, when COVID hit, I didn't have that commute and I worked from home and I read a lot more. So it was just interesting. I think I've gone off tangent again. I'm sorry, Chris.
Subjects. What subjects would you be drawn to then? Fiction or non-fiction?
Yeah, fiction. And any topic at the time that interests me. So my son's really got into the immune system at the moment. So by virtue, I've got into dendritic cells and things like that. And then also, unfortunately, a friend has got cancer. They needed some money for some treatment. So I offered to shave my hair off for the treatment because, I work in a big company, lots of people would be interested, having a giggle at me with no hair. And so I really got into reading a lot about, human biology and stuff like that. But just varies, just reading anything that's good, anything that is well written. Don't really mind about the subject as long as the sentences are constructed in powerful ways. What I dislike intensely is when I get spoon-fed. I love cliffhangers and the sort of open possibilities in sentences. I love books that don't have an ending.
Well, you're certainly writing your own story, and one of the, I think, milestones, I should say, in your story seems to be the one that we've skipped over very lightly, and that was the car blowing up in South London.
Oh, yeah,
it wasn't about that.
Yeah, it actually wasn't that much. It's just it's not funny. I know it's attention grabbing because I know it's attention grabbing. I went to an interview once and I went and sat down, and the interviewee, said to me, "Right, you've got 10 minutes. Tell me about yourself and keep me interested." And that was sort of his interview technique. And so I started by going through my CV. I then touched upon my education. I talked about sports. At the time, I think I was still hiding the fact that I was an artist, and so that didn't come up. And then he wasn't really paying any attention, and I thought, I haven't got the job, so I thought, what can I say? And I thought, I'll just go for it. So I said, a few weeks ago somebody blew up my car with a bomb. And his reaction was shock, horror. Oh my goodness, no way. And he looked up, and then I thought, oh my goodness, isn't karma a weird thing? Like, who would have thought that having your car blown up by a bomb would then get you a job in a roundabout way? But yeah, it was a mistaken identity. I've moved to London with my mates from university and my cousin, and we were living in South Ealing. And my car was parallel parked outside, and I was actually ill that day. I was doing kickboxing at the time, one of my fleeting passions. And I'd gone to bed, and then my housemates woke me up screaming, saying, Flish, your car's on fire. And I was like, no, it's not. And then, then it was, it was terrifying at the time. Obviously, everybody's safe, nobody got hurt. So it's an interesting conversation now. At the time, I don't know if you've ever seen a car like on fire, like a ball of fire, but it was incredibly scary because the chairs, the seats, they eerily, like, they got the form of a body, and they kept, because I had a really, really bad cold, and I'd just woken up, and I wasn't really compos mentis, and they were saying, "Fliss, it's your car," and I was like, "I'm not in the car," is what I remember most. And then the engine blew, and then the two cars next to it then caught on fire, and then we had a couple of fire engines come, and all the neighbours saying, "Well, we've never seen this before. We've never had this."
It is an incident of interest, and it is a point of, because not everybody. It doesn't happen all the time. Like, it's not everyone's seeing their car being blown up. So I can imagine why it would catch people's attentions. Yeah. And did they find out who caused it? Who dropped the bomb?
It was gang related, and it was a mistaken identity.
Okay. Any other wonderful milestones in your life that we should know about, Felicity?
Well, wonderful might not be the term, but there's a huge. I mean, I am partly defined by. You got to tell me when to stop talking, by the way, because I don't know. So when I was 14, we moved to France, and we didn't speak French, and I wore train tracks, and
Train track is what?
Braces. Sorry, I wore braces, and we went to see an orthodontist, and he suggested an operation which we should never have done. And I had an operation, and he did things that he shouldn't have done, and he made some big mistakes, and as a result, he cut the main blood supply to my mouth. And whilst he patched me up, or thought he patched me up, he actually never did properly. So over the next sort of 6 months when I was healing, I wasn't actually healing. I had bone necrosis, which is basically effectively when bone dies because there's no blood supply going to it. So parts of my jaw, the palate, bone around my teeth, all just slowly died over the course of about 6 months to a year. I'm not quite sure actually. And I still had the braces in. It turns out that the braces were keeping my teeth in because there was no bone around the teeth. And I remember eating a Milky Way sort of part on one side of the mouth that wasn't too, damaged. And then it was weird as well because I was a vegetarian, so I don't really know why I thought it was a chicken bone, but I thought it was a chicken bone, and I pulled out chicken bone. Actually, it wasn't the chicken bone. It was the roof of my mouth, a part of the roof of my mouth. that because the gum had never healed over it, and it basically completely died. So I pulled that out, and then there was just a gaping between my nasal cavity and my mouth was just a big old hole. So I would drink, eat, it would come up my nose. And then to cut a long story short, basically so still living in France, but there were doctors and surgeons in Guy's, St. Thomas's and King's. And through various different reasons, they got together, and my mum would take me over to England for, major maxillofacial reconstruction surgery. And I would have an operation, and then I would come back to France, and then I'd go back to school, healing. Again, this is the British School of Paris. They were amazing. They let me, I had a lot of time off school with different appointments and things. And the kids as well were amazing. When I look back, everybody was nice to me. Not nice, sickening nice because they felt sorry for me. Obviously, a lot of people did feel sorry for me because at times I didn't have half a face. I looked like a right weirdo. But nobody, everybody was just very, I guess we all had a childish faith. I certainly had a confidence that it would all be fixed one day. And so therefore, even though it was horrific and there were so many tears cried and, the world ended on multiple occasions, I kind of deep down knew it would be okay. And it is okay. And I look perfectly fine, and you would never know I don't look any different. Well, I kind of do if I laugh a lot, because I don't have, I have implants now. So I had 2 bone grafts, so both my hips, they took bone from that to rebuild the mouth. And also, this is why I love art, because I don't know if you've ever been seriously ill, but when you're really ill, when you're sort of bedridden, even watching TV hurts. If you're in pain, even reading was too much. I think nowadays it'd be a lot easier actually, because you've obviously got Alexa and things like that. But at the time, I was very sensitive to noises and textures and things like that. And I was very sensitive because I was, I guess, not depressed, but sometimes feeling very sorry for myself. So drawing was always my comfort blanket, because it was me and my pencil and my notepad, and that was all I needed. I could do it at any time. Because sometimes would wake up all sorts of times in the night for different reasons and things. So that's, art is just the best thing in the whole wide world as far as I'm concerned, for lots of different reasons. So yeah, so that was a pretty huge milestone. But it's life. Everybody has to go through their thing, right?
Well, I think another milestone, in a way, has been this Ukrainian war that we're subjected to. It seems to be that you have a sensitivity to war and the external, foreign politics particularly, and the catastrophe that could unveil with all of this. And art is, again, your salvation. But the one thing you have done, you had told me, is that you did take in a Ukrainian family. So I'd imagine that was of some comfort to you to be able to do that.
Yes. Oh my God, I love them so much. Diana and Yesenia, and husband Max. Yesenia is the daughter. Diana is the mum, and their bloody dog Dexter, who I don't love, but that's just funny because we got 3 cats. We used to have a dog, but that's another story. So yeah, that was amazing. Yes, I am sensitive. Yes, I do want to help. And yes, we're privileged. So I was quite nervous to say to my husband, "Oh, Richard, I really want to help, and maybe we could take on a family." Because I thought he would say, "Oh, God bless, not another idea." Because beforehand, I also wanted to adopt and foster and things, and he said we weren't ready, and I think that's correct. I think we have to wait till we're a bit older, and our children have moved out and things like that. Anyway, he surprised me completely. He said, "No, I think it's a great idea. I would love to do that." And then we had some friends also in Fleet that were doing it, and And as soon as I found out that we had friends doing it, I didn't feel so harebrained and alone in doing it. And then we found a family on LinkedIn, and Deanna, we got speaking to her. And I mean, she is the most incredible woman in the whole world. Like, I have learned so much from her. She didn't know us from Adam. She trusted, couldn't get their dog over, and the dog meant a lot to them. So my husband Richard ended up actually having to drive to France to pick them up, to drive them back. And so, you know, she left her home. She, her daughter and her dog came to live with us. So we could have been anybody, but, you know, her circumstances dictated she didn't have a lot of choice. And they lived with us for nearly a year, and it was sad, happy. You know, it's sort of been the worst and best times of my life. I can't say there'd be any really good times for her as such, other than that we now have a very special relationship. They've moved out now. They live down the road in a house nearby. I don't actually see them that much, because if it's not painting and it's not my job, then it doesn't really get a look in. Although I did do a lot of painting with Yesenia, with the daughter, with the girl. And is it a milestone in my life? Yes. I mean, I think as people, as humans, we all wake up every morning and we all want to try and do our best, and we all make mistakes. And I think what upsets me about war is that I'm an adult and I should be able to have some control over, you know, these horrific things that are happening to people, that maybe one or two people have decided, you know, these just horrendous implications. So I get very frustrated by that. And if I'm doing something, I tend to feel a little less frustrated, because I feel like I'm helping. But then that gets me into all sorts of trouble. I've done a few paintings and put them out there that maybe are political, and then I get some horrible backlash. So I don't really do that. I mean, I do drawings and stuff at home, but I don't share them anymore, because I'm a people pleaser and I don't want people not liking me. I'm not brave like some artists out there that just put it all out there.
So what does 2024 hold in store for you, Felicity? What are you looking forward to? What's on your bucket list this year?
I'm working towards something that is unbelievably exciting, but I'm not brave enough to share what it is, because it might not happen, and then I'll be really embarrassed, because that would be awkward. So what I do every year is I sit down and I look about the year ahead, and I think about what I'd like to paint, and I look at the open calls and the shows, and then I align that with my work calendar, my diary, and I set out a plan, and then I go towards that. It's a bit like a New Year's resolutions, really, just a little bit more structured. So I will keep doing what I'm doing. I will paint every day. I will continually be thinking about what a future masterpiece could look like. I keep a diary. I write a diary most days. And I'll continue to learn, learn, teach myself, do the odd courses, and try and capture these special, fleeting moments or objects that hold other people's memories, and create art.
What are you most proud of at this point?
From what perspective?
Any perspective.
So from like my family, or from an art perspective?
Any perspective.
Oh, what am I most proud of? Yeah, I'm pretty proud of me. Considering we're talking about me, I've definitely had some challenges, and I've I'm feeling proud because I think I've worked myself out a bit. Been very confused for a lot of my life, and I feel in the past few years, like I'm who I am at work, which is an amazing place to be, and I'm who I am with my art, which is an amazing place to be. I could be a better mom. I could give them more time, but in a really weird way, I'm a happier person by doing as much painting as I do. So I'm the best mom I can be in that respect. And I just want my children to grow up and live their life and their path, whatever that may be. Not necessarily, I don't need them to be happy. They may not be, if that's not what they want, but I'd like them to be content with their choices. So in the future, if you were to ask me what am I most proud of, I would like to think it would be my children for figuring themselves out and for doing what they feel is what's right for them, just like I feel like I'm finally doing for myself.
The journey continues, Felicity, and I wish you well with it. Thank you, too, for coming on the show and sharing so much of it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And you can visit Felicity's gallery online and also on social media. Just follow the link in the show notes. And whilst you're on Facebook and Instagram, do give us a follow and leave your comments and questions and also suggestions for guests. As you know, we always love to hear from you. Any feedback about the show, which has now boosted us to the top 20% in global podcast stats. So that's pretty amazing for such a young podcast. And that's all thanks to you. Well, next week, my guest is someone who's going to make your mouth water. Her name is Anna Eccles, and she's a cake artist. So join me next week here on the Art Podcast as we get to know Anna, and you might want to have a cup of tea in hand.